So we might as well make a start. Um, Welcome to everyone to this fourth in the series of webinars on employability training. Good to see you all again, and um, looking forward to today's session. So as you possibly know, and as you can see on the screen, we're talking about recruitment today. And I was really just hoping to, well, for me not to speak so much today and to hand it over to my good colleagues Brian and Gemma, because they have much more experience of actually doing this. And so I'll maybe pepper in some overall comments perhaps, or things that I've picked up through the course of this Employment FM project. But Brian and Gemma have more extensive experience to pass on, hopefully. And hopefully we can have a more of a discussion. I know I always say that, but I've tried to keep today's presentation to be less kind of slide heavy and more to enable a conversation to emerge. I did print out the conversation, the chat, I mean, from last week, which was very useful for me, at least, to get a sense of what training you've done. Brian, you missed that. So
I did.
I'm sorry, I should have actually, no, I just only have thought about this now, that I should have sent you that chat log so that you could have seen what people are doing. But it would be useful to continue that conversation in the chat, as you're all familiar with, I think, by now, just to add your experiences of doing training, as well as your questions about what we're talking about, but also your questions more generally, you know, what you actually think you need support in or help with, or more, you know, refined guidance on. So please keep that conversation going. So yeah, today we're talking about recruitment and working with young people, and you know, how to take young people on a journey with us. And I know I'm sort of prefiguring some of what we're talking about, but that word, the journey, seemed to resonate most strongly in when I was putting this presentation together. It's about you know, the young people are on a journey in life, and you're helping them along in a journey for a certain piece of time in working with them, and it's about, you know, what is that journey and how do you help them along. So Brian and Gemma, like I was just saying there, please just come in as and when, but I will cue you in. But if there's anything that you feel really passionate about saying on any of these points, please do. Sorry, do we all know each other? I'm Cormac from Radio Regen. Brian, Gemma.
Brian Fishmere.
And I'm Gemma from Reform Radio.
Thank you. And thank you all for joining us once again. The first thing I wanted to just kind of frame it as, we talked about this in the session before last, didn't we, about working with young people and how important it is to get to know them and who they are. So so I wanted to frame that again in the context of recruitment, because it's kind of taking a step back first of all, you know, in terms of before you even have a group of people and getting to know them, what kinds of people do you think you want to work with? You know, and that's kind of addressing that larger conversation, or that larger question of, you know, what you want to do as an organization. What kind of people do you support? You know, what kind of relationships do you already have, or what relationships do you want to have? So yeah, what learners do you want to work with? And then you can get into that question of once you have a group of people, how important it is to get to know them and identify how you're going to get to know them, and how you're going to get to know their personal challenges, the needs that they have, and how you're going to support them to get to where they want to be. So that was the first thing I wanted to just kind of flag up, and there's a range of questions around this. Brian and Gemma, do you want to talk about the learners that you work with, and sort of how you get to know them first of all. Is that a good place to start, or should we start even further back in terms of that organizational question of who you want to work with? Brian?
Yeah, but up in Scotland we've got the employability pipeline, which we feed into, which has 5 clear stages of young people. Where stage 1 is young people who are involved in criminal justice and social work and have lots of wraparound support. Stage 2 being young people who are starting the employability journey but don't quite know where they want to go. Stage 3 being young people who have a pretty fair idea of where they want to go and just need a push and a shove in the right direction. Stage 4 being they're already doing it themselves, and stage 5 is university, college, and they're applying and doing it themselves. So SHMU and SHMU Train work with stage 2, so young people with the right wraparound package can potentially move on to a positive destination. So we've made quite a clear distinction in the group that we will support. So, and that's just through the employability pipeline. I don't know what it's like down in Manchester.
Well, again, the pipeline. Sorry, Jem.
Go on, Matt.
Yes. No, that's for you to answer, wasn't
it? We don't necessarily have a pipeline in Manchester. We obviously have lots of different agencies that are working with similar young people that might come directly through the employment pipeline. But yeah, we will align ourselves with various agencies that work with young unemployed adults. And that's where we'll send lots of recruitment literature, or go in and run a taster, and all those kinds of things, which maybe we'll come on to in a bit more detail. But again, working with mental health agencies supporting young people, and emailing and getting to know contacts there, making strong contacts and relationships, and getting them to understand what you do. Because when you come in with radio, sometimes that can be a little bit hard for them to stand. So I think being really clear about what your outcomes are and stuff like that with the partners. So Job Centre Plus as well. Job Centre Plus, you can make good links with people there, and sometimes it's as good as the advisor, the kind of process of that. But one thing that you can do is you can get on their kind of approved supplier list. So if you get through that stage, that means that they will cascade your flyer to probably like all job centres in the Greater Manchester area, for example. So it's definitely worth talking to somebody about that, because they're almost deemed as a little bit more of substance if they're put onto that. And then obviously we try to work with like the Prince's Trust. There's a Prince's Trust in every town, where they specialise in working with young unemployed adults, and they're always looking for next steps from maybe smaller courses. So yeah, anywhere where there might be a barrier to employment, or somebody working, not working, then that's the kind of types of the types of agencies we'll try to contact and make a list of. And then we have a reliable kind of contact list over the last 5 years that we've built, that we'll just be our go-to when we're recruiting.
Mm-hmm. That's really useful. And you've already started talking about the range of agencies and organizations that you need to have contact with in order to do that recruitment, and I thought we'd get into that a little bit down the line. And just keeping the focus right now on the learners themselves, it would be interesting to know in a bit more detail from Brian and Gemma, like, what do you do in terms of getting to know the people at that recruitment stage? Like, I know we did talk about this a little bit in that other webinar. Was it 2 webinars ago?
Yeah.
What do you actually do at that first, or even before the course? Do you do that kind of pre-interview or whatever like that? Could we maybe talk a bit more, about how that works and how important that is?
Yeah. At SHMU, we've got quite a clear process where we take referrals, but like Gemma, for different organisations. But before we take any young person on, we do a pre-interview with a young person where we give them a guided tour of the building, and we interview them just to find out what their barriers are and what they want to achieve. That's backed up with a reference from the Skills Development Scotland, which is an employability programme up here. And then from there, we make an informed choice about whether we think we are the best placed for the young person, or if someone else would be more suitable to work with them. Once that's done, they start the course, and we spend the first week doing lots of team building and group work and getting to know them, working out their barriers, and from there building 4 weekly reviews where we can see, are we on point, are we on track, and making sure that we're addressing any barriers that have been addressed by either us, the referring agency, or the young person themselves.
That's really useful. Thanks, Brian. And Gemma, do you have anything to add to that, or? Yeah.
So ours is slightly different in the fact that I suppose ours is more around kind of the thinking of around participation and pastoral stuff, which I know yours is as well, Brian, but in terms of less more like a job, more about kind of engagement side of it.
Yeah.
And we tried to kind of and get to know them via that. So we will do a similar thing. We might be referred through an agency. We'll send them our own referral form, and that I don't know if that's in the handbook or not, but it's something that we've created ourselves, and it's really finding out information that we might need to know. But we try to, it's not kind of in an intrusive manner, so we don't ask inappropriate questions. So kind of like for what we deem as that we don't need to know at the time. So things like sexuality and stuff like that. It's nothing to do with those kinds of things. It's more to do with is there does this young person have any support workers that we could contact? Is there, is this young person living at home and has a home rest? Those kinds of things that would make us be able to better to support the young person and to also make judgments about the risks they would bring to others in the group and themselves. So sometimes we had to turn a young person down based on the fact that we feel that they might be more at risk by working with some of our young people, or that they might pose a risk to maybe anyone who's under 18, because sometimes we work with 16 to 25-year-olds, so anyone who's kind of not an adult at 18, obviously. So we take all that into consideration, but that's all kind of done behind the scenes. It's very much when we meet the young person, a very open, warm environment. We show them the studio where all the shows go out from straight away. We think that's always kind of a catch. And then we'll go and buy them a coffee in the cafe, and we'll do it a very informal kind of chat through what's happened before, where they're at, what they want to get from it, and explain all the types of things they can get involved in here. And then we try to tap into something they're really interested in, and then we try to tell them how that could be turned into radio. And yeah, really. And then it's very much get to know you. We spend a lot of time getting to know you the first couple of sessions. We take really small baby steps in terms of talking in front of each other, talking on a microphone. And again, there's lots of different ways you can do it, but yeah, that's the way we do it.
Yeah, that's really useful, both of you. Thank you. And to everybody, it gives a sense of the kind of the introduction, the importance of that introduction and bringing someone into the organization, giving them that sense of welcome, and we're working with you. That's that's obviously embedded in how SHMU and reform work, and probably in the way you work too. Unfortunately, Dave can't hear me, although I have said in the chat that it's I'm hopefully not going to be talking so much today. Hopefully others aren't having an issue. I know that Brian and Gemma, you can hear me anyway.
Yeah.
But that's unfortunate, Dave, and I know it's pointless saying this. Yeah, because I actually wanted to just kind of flag up what other people here are potentially interested in, because I know that Hive Radio, you've said that, Diane, you're looking at working with, or you work with schools, don't you? You provide training in schools and other community groups and businesses. At least that's what, Ben, you were saying last week. And I think Pat from Dundalk, I don't think Pat is with us today, but he's going totally focusing on disadvantage. I just wanted to flag these up, sorry, just to kind of have these in the mix. And Sive, you're not here with us, I don't think either, talking about volunteer training, but doing some QQI training. I wanted to know what that was. And Russell, you've said already today that you are going to be starting to develop your package with, or some training program, potentially in collaboration with an adult education centre across the road. And Jay from Spark, you're talking about BAME community, presenting on mental health in the community. Sorry, Jay, you're not from Spark, you're from Radio Cardiff, sorry. And so BAME community, mental health, and you're sort of talking about setting up your training. So I just wanted to throw those things out there. And oh, you are here, Si. Sorry, it's hard for me to actually scroll up and down the attendee list because the screen is so small. You know, I just wanted to throw those out. Sorry, Brian and Gemma, humouring me there, and all of you. I just wanted to put those in the mix so that we can know the range of people that we're actually interested in working with. So hopefully that at least flags up some potential learner groups that we're talking about working with. Hi, Gordon. Thanks for joining. Is there anything more to say about? I mean, obviously, there's so much more to say about supporting learners and so on. Do you want to get into that in more detail as we go on, or is there?
Yeah, I suppose so. I think
at this stage,
Gemma, I think the only thing that I would say is we can be quite flexible, and I don't know if it's slightly different with you, Brian, because of the nature of it being like an employed position. But we sit down with say our programs are running 10 till 4 every day, and we have somebody who's a carer or we have somebody who's a mother. As long as we agree with them before they start the program that we can be a bit more flexible with them, we will be. So we don't say no because you don't fit our criteria, you don't fit into our kind of box. We say, actually, you know, as long as so the people aren't turning up saying, oh, I need to go now, I need to leave we make kind of agreements prior with different people about what it is that their barriers might be to taking that next step. And if that's the fact that I can't come on a Friday, as long as we deem that person's going to really put the role in and we're going to be able to support them properly and they're going to get enough out of it, we'll be flexible with them, or we'll signpost them to a different course maybe. Not on a Friday.
Yeah, we're slightly different. SHMU as an organisation is very much like that. SHMU Train, the employability side, is because we are their employer and we are creating a work environment. There is hours and requirements and start times and finish times and rules and regulations, but because we are trying to create a proper work environment for the young people. So the young people will probably say we're non-flexible. We are quite flexible in that we're trying to allow the young people to get better at turning up on time and timekeeping and sticking to schedules and things. But it's a tough gig for them because we are quite hard on them. We try and reshape them because what we want to do is when they're ready for the world they work over the 12 weeks is be able to survive that first 2 or 3 weeks in a job rather than telling their boss to stick it. So it's a bit of pantomime playing by myself. I play a nice bad boss for 12 weeks and try and shape and get them licked into shape, but it's not as flexible as well, it is, but it's not because of the environment that we're trying to create.
Exactly, yeah, and that's shaped by other factors as well, you know, in terms of being a government contracted employability provider, isn't it? I mean, I think that's
we have we have outcomes to achieve. The young people are classed as starts, so if they fill a place, it's a government contract, so we have to get an outcome for them. So yeah, there's a lot of pressure on staff to make sure that happens as well. So it is a slightly different project compared to any other thing that we do at SHMU, where it's just quite relaxed and formal, and we take the needs of the individual 110%. With the course needs almost dictate how the rest of it works.
That's great. can I move on in slides? I know I said I didn't really have a very slide-heavy presentation, which I don't this week, but I just had little themes maybe just to sort of shape the conversation. Oh, that didn't work. And I just wanted to talk about how we actually recruit. So, you know, what strategies do we actually employ to get the word out? Quite simply, you know, like, how do people know that we exist? How do young people choose us as opposed to another organization down the road? And what relationships, you know, do we build in order to bring people into our organization? So really, I mean, those things that I have there were strategies that I think are pretty common to us three, at least me, Brian, Gemma.
Yeah.
You know, referrals through other organizations, social media, word of mouth, and then Brian, you've said this to me in many times about how important it is to put those posters out in key community locations, you know, like in doctor surgeries and so on.
Yeah.
Do you want to pick up on those and just give more detail? And Gemma, I'll come
Yeah,
to you.
I could do a whistle stop tour and then hand over to Gemma. Referrals through other organisations. Most of the referrals come through Skills Development Scotland, which is a national employability programme up here. So it's a key vehicle for young people to go to. So most of the referrals come through that. If not self-referrals from young people direct, we've managed to build up a good reputation. So most young people know of us and want to be involved. So it's been quite good. Social media, we've got a closed Facebook account and we bombard other sites with our campaigns when it's time to recruit young people. So we're quite savvy with using Facebook and using Twitter to make sure that the word is out there. Word of mouth is just what I was saying earlier on. Young people talk about the project, they talk about the success that they've had, which works really well. And yeah, the posters is a key thing, and we've learned over several years that put the posters where parents and grandparents are going to be, because they're the ones that are going to grab Johnny or Dave and tell them that they need to go and do a course. We have many referrals from grandparents who are now quite probably a generational, they're parents now, parents are not in the picture, grandparents have become parents, and they frequent doctor surgeries, the library and dental surgeries, and we get a high percentage of hits for grandparents phoning up and saying that course would benefit my grandson or my granddaughter. So it works really well. And one thing that's missing here is that we use quite well is radio. We've got an FM radio station, so every hour on the hour we put out an advert about our courses and start dates and things again, and using the platforms that we've got here. So yeah, and a whistle stop tour, that's a Schmooze strategy for recruitment.
That's great. And Gemma, do you want to add to that?
I think the doctors' surgeries and things like that's not something we've tried yet, but I definitely on this program I'm going to start trying that. We do all of these things. I think one of the things with word of mouth is it doesn't necessarily rely, from what we found from word of mouth, is it's not necessarily young person to young person. We've had a few where the friends have come through, but sometimes friends are in different positions, or maybe they're quite isolated and don't have a group of friends. But sometimes it's word of mouth through agencies. So if we're working with probation, then we might get another probation officer start calling us because that has been a success story. Or same with, you know, other agencies. So that normally the staff, just because you reach one member of staff within an organisation doesn't necessarily mean that you're reaching all of them. And so it's really key to keep trying to make more contacts, because some of them will have their own caseload and that they won't be necessarily then transferring all that information on, and it might come around accidentally. So I think word of mouth is, we find that it's really good once that drifts through an organisation, but at the beginning you need to be finding as many contacts in that same organisation as you can. Good examples of that are people like Job Centre Plus, Connect, Career Connect, all those kinds of places where they don't necessarily share the information now. They just kind of do it on a person by person thing. So yes, that's one of the things we found. Then once you get through to an organisation like that, you do normally find that, you know, good news travels fast, especially with those that they're struggling to know what to do with. So yeah, social media, again, thinking about putting a boost on it. So we'll sometimes put a sponsor on. You'll probably see it's sometimes saying sponsored. And if you go behind that, you'll find that you can target 16 to 24-year-olds, but we go a bit higher, obviously, again, like targeting parents as well. Instagram, we do like a poster that we'll be able to put up on there. Insta stories, trying to just using the means that young people use to generally surf around the internet, but definitely then targeting the posts with ages. If we're doing an all-female group, sometimes obviously change tags to women, changing it to Greater Manchester, and things like that. So it can be that you're really targeting the area that you want to.
Great. I was distracted there. But sorry.
We also, one thing that's not on here, sorry, just to let you know, we touched on evaluation a little bit last week, didn't we? Well, we did was it evaluation last week? It was, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Touched on it a little bit. And so we create these videos of things that are going on in our workshops, and we're getting better and better at it. We used to take photos and make them into a slideshow to show at the end of each program, but now we've actually invested in someone coming and taking high-res photos and a few videos. And time lapses is a really easy one to do on your phone, and you can put it in each room. And I think, Brian, you had one of them that we looked at a couple of weeks ago. It's really good. And it really just gives a quick essence of what happens. It's much more self-explanatory than what you can ever say. And we take videos in, and we'll do sometimes a free taster. Say we've got an organisation that's got about potentially like 20 young people, or even less, even 5. We might go and do a 1-hour free taster session, because, you know, the recruitment side of that, if they know you and they work and they've had a great time, or they've seen a video and you've gone and had a chat with them, you know, sometimes that's half the battle, because a lot of these young people might have anxiety or be shy, or all of these things that are you know, keeping them away from work. And to go in and break down that barrier, sometimes go to them is also really key, and then bring them in for a walk around the studio.
Absolutely, that's great.
And sorry, just one more thing on that. We've also been, say it's just one young person and they're really struggling with anxiety. We've had a couple that have been real success stories, that someone hadn't left their room for like 2 years, and they ended up being like voted young person ambassador, and ended up going to a big ceremony. And that was because we went and had like coffee in their neighborhood, in a coffee shop near them at first. So it was like really breaking down the steps, because even getting in a taxi and coming to us was too much. So again, going back to recruitment again, we'll also think of getting them here on that first day. Some of them we might actually get a taxi rather than them getting on public transport, if that's a barrier. And so thinking about, with recruitment, putting this in your funding bid, because it takes up a lot of resource. And actually sometimes with travel and offering food and refreshments is sometimes a pull for someone who's got no food in the fridge at home, or that might not be able to get there if they can't afford to travel there. So we've all of this recruitment as its own kind of bit in a funding app as well, and how we could break that down.
That's really, really useful. Thank you, Gemma. And actually, you've just kind of prefigured what I was going to go on to talk about, which was learners' journeys. And I know I mentioned that word already, but you know, you've just given a great example of someone who, you know, started off with that massive anxiety and then moved to becoming an ambassador for the organization. Is it? You know, and just that very
talks now in front of groups, or he talks in front of big public groups now, when in the past he couldn't speak to anyone in the first session.
So, you know, we and Brian, you have also extraordinary stories, and we talked about we talked about Anton's story, or at least I've alluded to it, but we haven't had a chance to look at that video. I'll send you that link, everyone, to a nice video that Shmoo have put together about a young man on the autistic spectrum and the sort of journey that he's been on. But it is that sorry, it is that overall picture of learners being on a journey, and how do we actually support them in that journey, and the part of their journey, their overall life journey that they're spending with us. So, how do they come to us in the first place? And we've talked about that. We've talked about recruitment, and what relationships we need to set up, what strategies we employ to bring people into onto our training or into our organization in the first place. But also then, like, where are they going afterwards? So what do we actually want to help them to achieve, and where are they going, and how do we help them get there? And of course, what support is needed to get them there, and who's doing that support? Like, what is it us? Who in our organization is doing that? So which person is best placed to give them the support that they need, whether it's pastoral support or whether it's much more specific job skills that they need. But also, what organizations are we working with, potentially in collaboration or in conjunction, to give them the support that they need. Brian, Gemma, did you want to pick up on that? And also, I wanted to just check with Ben. I don't know if I got your Ben. So I think you were starting to make a point in the chat, or maybe I don't know if it's cut off there, but I don't know if there was something that you had that you wanted to ask about. But just please do keep questions and comments coming. By the way, everyone, if there was something that you felt that we're not talking about, or that you want some more specifics on. Brian, Gemma, like, maybe we haven't talked so much about where people are going to, like, in terms of how you help people move on to the next destination. What sort of relationship do you have, Brian, and how do you get people there?
Yeah, Schmooze quite specific. Again, we have our radio, we have our film, but we also we have employability workers. So twice a week, the young people work with our employability team, and they are really exploring the whole time about outcomes, where they want to go, what's their dream job, and how many steps will it take to get to their dream job. And for some people, they might only need a couple of steps to get there. Other people might need 10, 15 jumps before they get to their dream job. So we work with them on that, making sure that we align their existing skills with jobs that are emerging in Aberdeen, and help them move on to either a positive destination. Now, through our government contract, we are tasked with getting young people either into full-time employment, back into college or university, or moving on to further training. So we've got quite specific routes there, but again, we try and work with a young person to make sure that they're suitable for them at that time. What support is needed by who? We've invested quite heavily in making most of the support in-house. We've got our media team, we have our employability team, we have dedicated youth workers, we have counsellor training. So we've rather than using external agencies, we've tried to make it almost a one-stop shop. So when they come to Shmoo, everything is under one roof for the young person, and we found that model works. It's expensive and it's a high resource, but the outcomes that we've got through that approach have worked really well. And again, it's just all based on having a government contract that we need to try and reach. So yeah, that's us.
Yeah, and Gemma, do you want to pick up on the differences there on reform?
Yeah, I think quite similar, really. I think one of the key things is for me, so not just to kind of go over what Brian said, is then what support do you have for them after the courses? Exactly what Brian says, you need to make sure you've got the resources, the staff, and if you haven't got that, you can use other agencies to close the gaps. So we have a careers advisor coming every Thursday from Ray's, and they've got their outcomes to meet, but they completely align with ours. So there's no point us employing someone to do that. As we get bigger and bigger, we're looking at doing that now, but I think as a starting point, it's not a necessity where you can close these gaps with other agencies. I think, but my biggest concern for people starting this up is that once you have kind of gained the funding and you've run the project, that a young person's life is still kind of in your hands, really. And it's, you know, not just to kind of say, right, we've had what we want now, you didn't end up getting a job, sorry about that, move on to the next one. So it's about writing into your funding bids legacy and support, and, you know, what is your action plan for each young person, and what record is there, and how often are you prepared to check in with them and see if they're okay. And we recruit them for different programs if they've fallen out of work, or help them to get into other programs. And I think some of that, again, is going back to agencies, is knowing a wide variety of next steps. So things from courses to training to apprenticeships to employers, to very employers that are quite flexible or willing to give young people a chance that maybe face certain barriers or need a bit of flexibility. And really, the recruitment pool to get young people in for agencies is just as important, to have a different and a slightly different pool for what happens next. So, you know, we have loads of a variety of people come in and talk to our young people. We could always find them a little bit of work experience if they need to, in a field that maybe they've got none in, or someone to come in and chat with them and have a coffee with them, if they just want to ask a few more questions. So how we do that's really, again, really flexible, but making that making those relationships going forward is just as important. And even though we're talking about recruitment, if you can't prove that you're supporting young people into positive outcomes, then those experiences that have been good might not turn into badder ones, and therefore that can affect your recruitment as well, because organisations that are referring want to know, okay, well, you know, are you going to be able to is this going to be a success or not? And if not, they kind of think, oh, well, I won't waste my time with referring to them because I know they always come back to me.
No, good point. Absolutely. And I should also just reinforce, and just to give you credit, Gemma, because I've been so impressed by the level of ongoing support that you've given the young people that you work with. You know, the care that you show those people. You know, the fact that you ring them sometimes is it a weekly basis, or, you know, like you check in with them regularly and make sure that they're, you know, they're happy, and just check whether there's anything that they're needing. And then if not, you know, if there is that bit of support, like they can come into the organization, they can, you know, just kind of help out, hang out, and it's that sort of real nurturing relationship that you foster that I think is very strong in what you do.
And I think especially with, like, you'll find a lot of people that are in prison or that offend have maybe, or that join gangs or anything like that, have had kind of no, so maybe our care leavers have had structure, and I won't go into all the statistics around all that, but it's really important that it's consistent and that there is boundaries and that they feel safe. And there's a lot of my learning that comes from participation and my training, and things like young people getting into gangs are looking for those rules and regulations and that routine, those kind of things that a family normally provide. And so all of these kind of, even Brian Shmoo being so different, but in a way, knowing where sometimes they might pull against it, but knowing where you're at and knowing that it's there if you need it is so important. And if you know, if it's not consistent, it can be a really negative experience for a young person and another letdown. And even though sometimes they might challenge you all the time, it's because they're trying to test will you actually let this go when you've had enough, or when you know the funding runs out. So for us, that's really key, and for me, in terms of dispensing any of my knowledge, it's really important that I kind of say that's my position on it.
Yeah, that's
great. And also, I suppose, just to say really quickly, there's not one way to do that. We have our way of doing it. When you're part of Reform Radio, it's forever, and until you don't pick up the phone again, that's it. So once we get to 30, 35, you don't have an age gap. You have an age limit of recruitment almost, but we don't have an age limit of when you kind of can stop interacting with us. But for example, someone like the Prince's Trust, who have a lot more constraints, have a lot more kind of bureaucracy, I suppose, to deal with. And I don't mean that really in a negative way, but I just mean it in a way that they have a lot of other things to consider. They have a structure where they have 3 months, and they have unlimited access to support for 3 months following a certain program. For other programs, it's like a year, and they decide exactly how much time. We've got the kind of luxury of it being our own organisation, and so we that's our decision really. But I know obviously that can't work for everybody.
This is it exactly, and what you said about resourcing and building in recruitment into your funding bids, but also acknowledging that support for young people extends beyond the period that you're necessarily contracted in the widest sense of the word. In working with these people, whether it's a 12-week program funded by the Prince's Trust or whatever like that, your engagement or relationship with those young people may well go on beyond that contracted work. So it's
Yeah,
just about kind of building that into your organizational capacity, which is really
yeah.
the point that we're trying to make here. What how are you set up to support that? That's, I think, a take-home point, isn't it?
Yeah.
Um, yeah.
Can I just
Sorry,
come in
go on.
here as
Yeah.
well?
Yeah.
I think one of the things that that is really key to recruitment as well is the design of your course. So, for example, if I was going to work with if I was going to work with, so one thing we do is we have all of our sessions in the daytime on Monday to Friday, and that's because it isn't kind of a youth club. It's supposed to simulate a working day and try and build those routines. So we'll do some one-off workshops, but it's about some people that are at home trying to build that routine for the first time. So because it's unemployment, we have those sessions in the day. If it was something like working with youth offenders or young people with antisocial behaviour, which I've done in the past, we've done those projects on a Friday night and a Saturday night because that's when they're most likely to get into trouble. So it's about picking the time of day for what you need to achieve and to take really care and consideration with your plan. So it's about making it work for your organisation, but actually serving the need that you need to serve, and not just randomly, I suppose, picking a time and day out of thin air. If we're working with kind of young parents, we might do it between 10 and 2, so that single parents, so they can go and pick up the child from school, or they can take it to nursery and not be late. We can, we don't start them at 9 when they're first starting off, or we might start, if it's a taster session, the first time they're ever coming here, we might do a 2-hour session before the program starts, but we might do it 1 till 3 in the afternoon. They've got some time, or like 11 till 2 if there's parents, so that they've got some time to figure out how to get here, get it wrong, be late, all those things the first time, so that doesn't kind of happen on the first day. And all these things build confidence. So we're not looking to trip them up. We're looking to guess for them where they might go wrong, and where that might be the time that in the past they've dropped out. And so we try to premeditate that so we can build around those issues and kind of and work towards them not happening maybe in a graded way, I suppose.
No, exactly, absolutely, and that comes with knowing your learners, doesn't it? And it comes with a certain amount of experience. Maybe mistakes we've made or whatever like that. Just those very basic points of having to pick up your children from school, and not building the course around that simple fact can sometimes be the deciding factor whether somebody can actually sustain themselves in the course. So no, the excellent points there. Thanks, Gemma. I want to just move on to just maybe, I think we only have time for one more framing slide here, but well, yes, that was, well, we've talked a little bit about what agencies we need to work with and what relationships, and yeah, I think we're getting into too many questions there about, and then issues with delivery. We could talk for hours, couldn't we, about working with particular groups and the challenges that they face. But we've maybe touched on those already. But just to maybe, because we're running short time, it's that question of what do you need as an organization in order to set up a program and to help people along that journey. Policies and procedures, absolutely key. To have things in place like safeguarding, even something like health and safety. A whole range of different policies, and we can give you templates for those if you don't already have those. We have stressed many times in these webinars the importance of staff, having the right staff in place and the right training for those staff, and the fact that Brian seems to be, Brian maybe has left us. I think maybe he has just dropped out. But having the right staff in place to deliver this is key, and acknowledging that it might be a great trainer in terms of the technical bits, but that doesn't necessarily mean that they'll be able to work with young people and all the challenges they might pose for you. Just the pastoral stuff that Gemma was talking about earlier on. And then Gemma, you talked as well about the network of employers and other agencies that you need to be working with or to be connected with in order to set up a good system for support. That was really just by way of a kind of a, what do you need? And of course that will change according to what kind of training you're thinking of delivering and what relationships you already have, whether you're focused on schools, for example, or whether you're partnering up with another organization or whatever. Gemma, did you have any sort of points on that note on policies or capacity?
Yeah, I mean, I think the handbook will go into policies and things that you can help use. I think obviously one thing that's really key is to one thing we do, which I suppose does fall into recruitment a little bit and maybe facilitation, but we don't kind of slap our young people with a load of forms when they walk in the front door. And that's because that can be a real turn off for those that have really hated school or had a bad experience. Can remind them of school. And I think it can take the fun and the initial kind of get to know them out of it. So we have obviously housekeeping and all that kind of stuff very quick, but we really get to know the names straight away. We get to know them. But the only thing we give to them at the very first thing is we take a register, we just hand it round, really, really chilled. So it's not kind of, again, anything simulating school, we try to kind of veer away from. And that's just the way we do it. But we just have a very, very simple consent form. And we say, when they walk in the door, obviously we need to know next of kin. We need to know allergies. We need to ensure we've got the right number and address for them. And if we find anyone's having issues, we can kind of have a look around, see if anyone's having a struggle with writing and stuff. And we always have a different way that you can present yourself. So you might want to talk it into a microphone, you might want to write it down with our workshops, and we'll know straight away from that consent form if someone's going to have troubles. And one of the things you can do to lose young people once you've got them is to not kind of understand them. So I think one of the key things here is, in a roundabout way, is a small, short, really easy consent form with staff there to be able to go, I can just fill this in for you really quickly, just you let me know the information if you think they're struggling. So they start to realise that those barriers are being taken down, where in the past they've maybe had to disguise them. And having a really flexible approach to each activity, so that it's very inclusive, because again, you might get 20 there on the first day, but that doesn't mean to say you'll get 20 back the next day. And that might be something that you've done or you've not understood. So it's very important that and while we're talking about kind of drop-offs, which I think a lot of people think, great, we've got 20 people coming, and then the next day, you will get a natural drop-off, and you will get a natural drop-off from when you recruit and they put their names on a piece of paper to when they turn up on that day. So I would say my biggest advice is always over recruit, because it's just a natural kind of natural thing that the people recruited out in the community might not turn up on that first day because they're not reliable, because they are experiencing lots of different barriers, and for whatever reason. We also, which brings me on to another topic about that, is we are really flexible in how we contact them. So we ask them, do you want email? Do you want a phone call? Do you want WhatsApp? Do you want a text? And the night before, we'll always text them or WhatsApp them going, hi, everyone, just remind you that we're coming in. Maybe the Friday before the Monday, we've called them all and said, hi, you still coming? And really chill like that. So we don't just kind of meet them those first times and then go cold until that first Monday. We ring them on the Friday before, we give them all a text every morning. And then maybe later on in the evening after a session, we'll text them again saying, hi, well done for today, guys. You all did brilliantly. Looking forward to tomorrow, just to remind you. 10 o'clock start, we've got loads of great things to do. And we do that and we let that go a little bit, but it's really key at the beginning for that, giving them that encouragement. And it really does make a difference. I've experimented with it and not called someone or sent those little text messages in the morning, and I have noticed the difference. It really does make a difference.
Yeah, that's really useful, and also just kind of so many things that you've just said there are indicative of the little small things that you may not think about before you start a course, and how important those little small things are, from filling out a form and the impact on that young person filling out a form on the first day,
Yeah.
putting them right back in that school environment, or just the fact that they come from a chaotic maybe environment, and just supporting them to just take that step into the station, into the studio. All these little things you may not think about. You have all the right intentions, and this is one of the things that I've really learned actually from running courses, is that recruitment isn't just about having the right relationships with organizations or putting posters out there. It's a complicated process, and actually more complicated than I was expecting from my experience. Recruitment was one of the reasons that one of the courses that we were going to run didn't happen, and we weren't expecting that. So it is something that you need to think about in a broad sense as well, not just getting the word out there, but also how you the relationships that you set up beforehand.
And it will make and break a project.
Yeah.
If you, like you say, you can write the best funding app, win the best funding amount with the best funder, plan the most perfect project, which would be the most exciting thing. But if people don't turn up, it amounts to nothing. And if they don't stay, again, it's about that evaluation. What could we have done differently? What could we do to kind of improve that? And retention, if you find by the end of your course your drop off is quite high, then it's why was it so high? Because our retention rate is very, very high. And I do know other organisations where they're happy with by they start with say 10 people and by the end of it there's 6. Well, for us, I don't think that's good enough, really. There's something where you could be hanging on to. There are ways to hang on to young people, and and it's just about going that extra mile, and sometimes it is worth it. And just one more thing, when people arrive on public transport, our Metrolink, the closest Metrolinks or buses, we sometimes send a member of staff down there on the first day to meet people off there, because they might just get lost on that last bit, or they might just turn around on that last moment before they have to walk through the door. Sometimes we'll have a member of staff just a bit further down the road just to go, oh, hi, I'm here to meet you. We're coming this way. And just those little things really help someone feel really safe, and oh, actually this place is different than all the other places I've been. I might as well behave here, and I might as well give it a good shot.
And that's setting you up on the right start, isn't it, and the right foot. That's really great. I'm conscious of time, and the fact that we've gone slightly over. And if anyone needs to go, absolutely, understood. And we'll send you some follow-on activities or resources. And I'm aware that I haven't actually been sending anything for the last few weeks, but I will do so today. If there are any questions that anybody has, though, I'd be happy to stay around for a few more minutes. Gemma, I mean, if you need to go off, absolutely fine.
No, I'm okay today.
Okay, good. But if there's anything that people want to know a bit more about, or that you feel that we didn't really cover today, more than happy to stay around. I might just go on the slides to the, well, you've probably seen this already, but just to reinforce the fact that there are resources already on the website, but that I will be sending some more targeted resources to you on the back of these sessions. But yeah, it would be great to know a bit more about, you know, what you're struggling with, maybe, or if there's any questions, any clarifying questions that you have from today, or from even in general. I know we've lost Brian for now, but I can see there's a few people typing already. I might just turn this thing to discussion so that people can turn on microphones.
And you know the links for the
Yeah.
last recorded ones, Cormac? Where have
Yeah.
you sent them out? Yeah, or where would I find them?
No, I haven't actually emailed everyone the links, and thank you for reminding me. I'll include the links in the email. But I've uploaded, I think, all of them to YouTube so far, and a few of them have actually been watched, which is interesting. But I will include links to videos in emails, because we have there's a few others, a few of the videos that I wanted to send you all, not just the links to the recorded webinars, but these webinars are recorded. If there's anything that you want to go back to, or you know, just as a memory jog or whatever. I did see some people typing, but I can't see anything just yet in the chat. But if anyone wants to speak, you can do so. I've turned on the microphones, so you need to turn on your individual microphones in order to speak. But if you prefer to do that, I think you all know the drill by now. But if there's anything that you want to ask via chat, please do so, and we'll try to answer any questions. Just while we're waiting for any questions to come in, is there anything else, Gemma, that you wanted to add to what we've talked about today, or?
Not really.
Yeah.
I think yeah, I think another thing maybe to think about, if just looking at it, is your young people becoming ambassadors for your courses, sometimes coming in at the start of a course and telling them their journey, or coming to a taster session and talking about where they were and what happened as a result of the program. That's also another good recruitment tool.
Good point, yeah.
And really useful for the young person to get those skills and that experience to add to their CV.
Great point, yeah. It's good for them as well as good for you. I have seen people typing, like as in I can see that people are typing, but I haven't seen any questions just yet in the chat. And Ben, you seemed to have a question before, but I didn't see it. If that's the case, maybe hope it's not the case that my chat isn't somehow cut off, but I can't see anything in the chat myself. Below Ben saying, I don't know if this is the right webinar too, and then it just kind of cuts off, it seems.
Well, since then, I've replied to that.
Oh, right. So maybe my chat is actually cut off.
Yeah, so I think people are kind of
sorry. Yes, there's loads of stuff. Sorry, it just wasn't auto refreshing for me. I'm so sorry. There's so much that I've actually missed already. Oh God.
It's only that question, just asking about how do you make links to referral organisations. So I've just explained here some of the ways that I went about it.
Sorry, this is all my fault. I realised I was blabbing and not actually looking towards the end of the conversation. I just hadn't scrolled down.
Just saying bye, I think now.
Yes, that I can see that now. Okay. Yeah. So next week will be the final in the series, and we're going to be talking about, you know, just the overall once again, but again drilling down into specifics. But it's about, you know, what you need to do in order to develop a good program. We're going to be talking about partnerships, funding, and any other questions maybe that you have. It would be really useful to have some specific questions to address, and it has been useful to get a sense of what you've been doing. Oh, we've actually lost most people already. Sorry, I haven't been keeping my eye on the participants list, but yeah, to everyone left, if you have any questions that you want to pose to us for that final webinar, please do, and we'll try to get to that then, or in one-to-one contact perhaps afterwards. But I think that's probably it for now, Gemma. What do you think?
Okay.
Or,
I'll say bye
Jay,
then.
Peter, Stephen, Theo, thanks to you for participating today, and look forward to seeing you again next week. And I'll send, yeah, I'll send you more stuff later on today, which will hopefully reinforce what we've been saying. So yeah, I think I'll stop recording, and I'll call this to a close.